Hi, and welcome everyone to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Today we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here again on this stormy Wednesday. We have a big snowstorm here today, so winter's been challenging so far, but it is what it is, right, folks? Anyway, thank you again for joining Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, and of course, a big, huge thank you to the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which, as you heard, is available also on FM at 105.3 and on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. So we have a lot of listeners out there, and welcome. Of course, we have chat rooms on all social media. So please be sure and pop in, say hi. Questions and comments for our guests today are more than welcome. Don't be shy, pop in. So before I get started, I want to ask you to look around. Every one of us carries a legacy, right? We know our eye color, our favorite foods, and perhaps even our temperament. They're all inherited. They seem very much to be. But what about our anxieties that we can't explain? And I think we feel them more now than ever in these challenging times. What about the seemingly unshakable pattern of self-sabotage, loss, or fear that track back generations? Well, our guest tonight is a psychotherapist and a dream expert, Yael Schiller. She argues that our ancestors didn't just leave us their genes, but they left us their unresolved trauma, their unwept grief, their deepest secrets, all stored up within our subconscious. It makes so much sense. Tonight, we journey into her groundbreaking book, Ancestral Dreaming, which I read and I loved. And we're going to discover that revolutionary idea that the most powerful tool for ending these ancient cycles of suffering isn't just a therapist's office or a history book. It's waiting for us every single night, right where we lie our heads. And we're going to explore how to transform our sleep from a passive escape into an active collaboration with the past, using our dreams to finally wake up the sleeping stories of our legacy and bring profound generational healing to our own life and those of our children as well. So without further ado, welcome, Linda.
Hi, thank you for having me here. Nice to see you, Carol Ann.
Thank you so much. It's such a joy to have you. And I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic. You're going to see me say hello to people as they pop in.
Great.
And of course, I have to say hello to Heidi. She is my star sister. Blessings and blessings to you, Heidi. Always a pleasure to have you here. And of course, she says hello to you as well. She's from Boulder, Colorado. So hopefully we'll get some other folks that pop in as well. Sometimes they pop in late, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So, Linda, tell us all about yourself. I'm going to step away for a minute or two, and I'd like you to walk us through what was the pivotal moment or realization that inspired you to write this book, specifically focusing on the intersection of ancestral healing and dream work. Tell us like how you got to where you are today.
All right. So to condense what could be a long story, I started having encounters with synchronistic and mystical experiences back when I was a kid or a teenager. So that started me getting interested in that world. And I remember when I graduated college, I went with a friend to Europe, and we were in Greece and standing on the island looking over at the sea, and I felt the earth speak not in words, and that sort of opened my inner eyes to that there's something more out there. So fast forward a bunch of years later, I spent a few years living in Israel, where Jerusalem was so intensely, profoundly moving that I couldn't live there if I tried. I lived in a different city. Came back, moved to Boston. I'm from Buffalo, New York originally. Did my graduate work here and spent many, many years as a psychotherapist, a consultant, professor at Boston University. And what I mostly focused on my professional work was trauma treatment. So, how did I get into dream work? That was sort of by accident. A friend came to the to the Boston area, moved here, and she said, "I'm starting a dream circle, and will you be in it?" And I answered, "Yes." And then my next response was, or question was, "What's a dream circle?" So, yes, before I even actually knew what I was saying yes to in my conscious mind, but my unconscious knew I had to say yes. So
Yeah.
that's how it started, my interest and work with dreams specifically. And I've been working with my own personal dream circle now. We just had our 40th anniversary of working together. And so in the beginning, we read books and we went to workshops and we studied and we learned together how to do dream work. Um, and then I can fast forward if there's time, depending on what your question is about how I specifically got to writing Ancestral Dreaming. Is that the next place you want me to go? Okay, I'll skip over the other books. I have 2 other
Well, we
books
could
to
get to
share.
them later.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple of years ago, a colleague of mine from IASD, which is the International Association for the Study of Dreams, wrote to me. He was an American volunteer who went to the Ukraine to do volunteer work there to help the war survivors in the Ukraine. And he said to me, "Linda, I'm using your book called PTSDreams, which is about how to heal from nightmares, to help these folks over here to heal from nightmares." And I was moved, I was profoundly appreciative. And then he said, I just discovered that your other book, Modern Dreamwork, has been translated into Russian, of all things."
Oh,
This was
wow.
before the war some years ago. PTS Dreams is in Spanish, but it's a little more accessible. But Modern Dreamwork was translated into Russian. So we said, I'm going to use that one to teach my classes how to English with that book. So he's over there using my books, and I'm feeling a profound sense of gratitude that some of my work can help people who are suffering from trauma.
Mm.
This is especially profound for me because this is not unexpected. My ancestors are from the Ukraine. So
Oh, wow.
my grandfather was born in Kiev, and he had to escape when he was 3 years old with his parents from the pogroms there. So my
Yeah.
family escaped back at the turn of the 19th century, or the 20 from the Ukraine, and came to America. So there felt like some real there's a word in Hebrew called tikkun, which means repair. It felt like there was a repair for me, that I'm
Mm.
able in some way to help people who my ancestors had to flee from, can now help them heal their trauma. So it really felt like there was this sort of circular healing happening and going on. And that was the seed for writing this book. And then I had a dream, and I can get into that later or now, depending on your what you want to do next, that
Yeah, of course,
confirmed
of course.
the book.
Of course, I wanna say hello to Allison. Thank you so much for joining us today. Um, gosh, there's so much to talk about. It was very like a synchronicity that
Yeah,
you wrote this book, given your heritage and your personal dreams and experiences. You're also a psychotherapist, correct?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So wow. I could see how like one thing led to another in your life,
Yeah.
like you were destined to be in this place and time, right?
Well, that's an interesting choice of words, because I have been learning to call what I'm doing a calling. And it really
Mm.
does feel like that is my calling in the world, to in various ways, shapes, and forms, to be of help and be of service and help people to heal from trauma and wounds and pain.
It's funny because I've been talking to a lot of people and reading about how our ancestors can affect like their lives, and their past trauma can
Right.
affect our lives and those of our children and so on. How do we, I mean, in the world of of like paranormal or high strangeness, whatever you want to call it, spirituality. It's so hard to say anything definitively because your experience is yours.
Right.
And lots of times we don't, know that, and we have to take the word of other people. But how, and I've been reading a lot about that. How did you know that our ancestors' pain, suffering, sorrow can transfer over generations? Like, how did
Mhm.
you know that to be true?
So, in my own dream work with my own dreams and working over many, many years with people who came to therapy or to my dream groups for all sorts of different reasons, I developed a system of 6 ways that our ancestors might be calling to us through our
Mm,
dreams. So it's not only the pain and the trauma that comes through, there are 6 different calls that I identified from, 40 years plus of doing this work. And one layer is simply, I'm here to say, I'm not really gone. I'm still here.
mm,
The second layer is from over here, wherever your belief system tells you over here is, on the other side of the veil, I have some gifts or some blessings for you that I want to give you. The third level is from over here, I've noticed or I've sensed or I've heard you asking for help and I can help you. So they're coming to offer us help.
mhm,
The fourth layer that I identified, and it's not limited to these 6, but this is how I sort of figured out a system. This is where we're getting calls from our ancestors saying, we died unhealed. We died in pain. And they show up either as a visit in our dreams, and there's a difference between a dream about someone or a visitation. They might show up in a dream as a character, there might be symbolized, there might be a metaphor, but oh, that's my mom or that's my granddad in the dream. And somehow through the content of the dream itself, you see their suffering and they're hurting and they're somehow asking for us to help them.
mm.
The other way that can happen, and I bet many of your uh, listeners have encountered or experienced visits from their departed relatives. And whenever I do a teaching live, I always ask people how many people, remember their dreams, and I go through a whole thing. And then how many people feel they've had a visitation from a departed relative? And without exception, at least half the people raise their hands.
Yeah.
As it's like a frisson, it's a felt sense. It's a encounter that is as real as it could possibly
Mhm.
be without an actual physical body standing next to you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you talk about that straight out in your book, and you
Yeah.
call that the 6 ancestral calls, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I'm sorry, go ahead. So
No, 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 go ahead.
I'll quickly say the other 2, and then I wanna go back to your question, how do we get this stuff,
Mm,
that we inherit? Because that was more the question as well. The other 2 calls, the fifth is when our ancestors died holding a grudge, and they want us to perpetuate it. So this is where, like, the Hatfields and the McCoys or the Montagues and the
yeah.
Capulets, somewhere in your family line, there are cutoffs, there's bad blood, and you might not even know why, but your ancestors coming through saying, "Keep it up." And here, our response needs to be a little different than for the other ones because we don't want to perpetuate enmity. And the last one is simply remember me, and pass my legacy and my stories and my history onto your children and your descendants. So those are the calls. But then, in addition to the encounters that we have in our dreams, our waking dream encounters, our visitations, there's a whole science of epigenetics that we're on a show where suspension of disbelief around the spiritual and paranormal is, like, oatmeal in the morning. It's not that unusual, I imagine, for most of the listeners on your show. But
Mhm.
in society at large, that is often looked at with a little bit of skepticism or how do
Oh,
we
yeah.
know or can we know for sure? So I want to offer your listeners and anyone else who might be tuning in this idea that it was not an idea. This is a scientific discovery. It's called epigenetics, and it is in conjunction with genetics. So we inherit, as you said beautifully in the beginning, we inherit our eye color or our hair color. but we also inherit the circumstances in which our ancestors lived. So
Mm,
epi means on top of or above the genetics. So what happens if our ancestors were lucky enough to have a lovely, peaceful life with bounty and blessings and joy, they live that way and pass that on to their children, who then pass it on to their children. Because there are two layers here. One is we parent the way we're parented. So,
yeah.
however we're parented, that's the worldview that we take in as our birthright, if you will. And mostly it's not until adulthood that we think about, do I agree with this or not? Or do I like this? Or do I want to challenge this or change this? Just this is how we were brought up. So then we have a chance to make choices. But the other thing in epigenetics, we actually literally have changes in our genetic makeup based on going through difficult experiences. And there's a concept called methylation of the gene, where the gene actually changes how it's read. So
Mhm.
if your ancestors were in the potato famine in Ireland, or had to flee the country of their origin, or were survivors of a natural disaster, and they had terror and fear and panic, and we know that all of our emotions are embodied, right? It's called a feeling because we feel it. And we literally change our biochemistry in conjunction with the emotions associated with what's going on. These emotions get passed down from generation to generation. And at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, there's been a lot of studies by Rachel Yehuda and several other people who have looked at second, third, fourth generation survivors of a variety of different horrible disasters in the world, and wars and Holocaust and pogroms and natural disasters. And they found not only changes in their gene pool, but they found that the third or fourth generation were having nightmares as if they had actually lived through those experiences, even though they hadn't. Their ancestors did. It's pretty profound.
It is. Does that happen between parents and their children that are on Earth now, or is it only like past generations? Like like in other words, my trauma that I've experienced, I have two children.
Okay.
And I'm still alive, God, thank God.
Yeah.
And I'm still living and suffering and living and enjoying life.
Great.
Does that trauma get passed to my kids even though I'm here? Or is that only when I'm off the planet? Does that happen?
Well, we pass on, because I have a daughter too. So I'm gonna even add a piece to what you said. Our daughter was born in China. She's adopted. So, but we raise our children in the totality of our own life. So
Mhm.
however you are affected by the things that happen to you, consciously or unconsciously, we pass those down in our parenting, right?
Mhm.
Here's the good news though, right? This is the point of the book. Awareness brings choice. Once we're aware, oh, I went through this, it was wonderful or it was horrible or anywhere in between, and this is what I took away from it, whatever that was. Here's the message that I got. Do I want to pass that on to my kids or not?
Mm.
Once we are aware and can ask ourselves questions, then we may pass on the message of healing, resilience,
Mm.
overcoming, and not the message of perpetual pain or wounding. And that's the beauty of doing this work.
So like I'm a big believer in shadow work and
Yeah,
I try to do it daily. And to me, that's how healing comes by doing the shadow work, by facing the traumas, whatever they are in your life, childhood traumas, present traumas, whatever they are. So you're
right.
saying as long as we acknowledge them and we heal in this body, then we don't necessarily pass that trauma on, even to my children's children. And
Right. Right.
okay.
So there's a lot of different ways for us to do our work. and doing the shadow work in whatever form you're doing that is your method and it works for you. Some people do it through traditional psychotherapy. I
Mm,
do a lot of integrated and embodied work that includes energy psychology and somatic work as well. So a lot of different modalities. Some people are using medication from
yeah,
prescribed from doctors or with the
yeah.
new psychedelics that are out there. Um, and then there's the whole realm of prayer, meditation, going within. But the key, and as you were saying, is do we recognize what we are carrying and holding?
Mm,
And then ask ourselves, is this mine to carry? Is this
yes.
my stuff? And if so, what do I need to do to heal? But if it's not my stuff, like those third or fourth generation survivors who did not go through the Holocaust, but they're dreaming as if they did, they're dreaming their ancestors' dreams. It's actually not theirs to carry. But then how do they go back and offer healing so that they don't have to carry it anymore either? And then we can pass on the healing rather than the trauma.
I love that. So let's dig into dreams a little bit.
Okay.
First and foremost, there's a lot of folks that don't remember their dreams. And I've asked, I always ask people if they remember their dream,
Mm.
or do you dream in color? Like I dream in vivid color all the time.
Mm.
People don't. So for folks that don't remember their dreams, how can healing come about?
So there's a two-sided question. The short side of one side is there are lots and lots of different ways to do healing work. It's not only through dream work. But in order to do healing through their dream work, um, the first step is they have to want to remember their dreams.
Mm,
Some people don't care. Some people say,
yeah.
it's just nothing. It's just, random firings of my neurons in the night. I don't really care. So, for starters, if you want to be able to access this very, very deep knowledge that allows you to tune into both your conscious self and the parts of you that you know but don't know you know, right? That's your unconscious self. The very, very best avenue to do that is those stories of the night that come through. Starting way back from Freud and Jung, they didn't have all the answers, but they did put us in the right direction. That this is an opportunity, if we tune into our dream world, to really tap into the wisdom of the universe. So, if you're interested in doing that, if someone wants to do that, first they have to want to.
Yeah.
And then they have to develop some practices that allow them to remember their dreams. And the very best practice for you remembering your dreams is to write them down. So I
Mhm.
always encourage people to have a journal right by their bed. And before they go to sleep at night, they can simply say to themselves, I'd like to remember my dreams. And I promise to their dream muse to write it down so I can work with it later. And that's just in general to remember their dreams. So
Mhm.
that's one of the best ways. And we know that dreams are like, puffs of smoke and wisps of mist. You move too fast, you sit up and they're gone, right? So not infrequently, I'll wake up and I'll say, oh, I had a dream and I just can't quite remember it. And I'll write down in my dream journal, I had a dream, just to honor the knowing that I had a dream. And
Oh,
that
I
helps
see.
like prime the pump. And then there are a bunch of different ways you can sort of help yourself remember. And
Mm.
one of my favorite ways is if you put your body back in the position you were in when you were sleeping. It's called positional memory. If you lie on your left side and you curl up your knees and tuck your hands under your chin or whatever do you do when you're sleeping, put yourself back in the position you woke up in and within seconds, sometimes you will remember, you will collect the dream because your body memory will take over. It's
Gosh, that's so
fascinates
true.
me how well that
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, that's so true. I know I had an experience once years ago where I had this very mystical, like euphoric dream. Um, and my husband woke me up and I was upset that I woke up because I was in this place that was just full of love and light and
Mm,
it was wonderful. And then I said to him, I'm going back to sleep for 10 minutes. And he left the room and then I went in the exact same position, and my dream started exactly where it left off. So
That's great.
I can attest to that.
There we
That is
have
so true.
witness and example.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. So like Heidi here mentions that she recently had a very vivid dream or dreams where her grandparents showed up at her door and then they all sat down at the kitchen table. Now, are those dreams you talked about two different types of
Right.
dreams. So can we get into like what kind, is that just a normal dream or is that like a visitation?
Well, we would need to ask Heidi if her felt sense was, I was having a dream about this story that she described, or if she said, I felt like they were really here with me and this
Mhm.
was happening in the now. If there's a felt sense. And I don't know if she can answer in the chat back or not, and then we'll know
Yeah,
which way it
absolutely.
was.
Yeah. Yeah, she also said here, coming around with new knowings, with more awareness, the way I parented my children, and now the way I
Mm,
parent my granddaughter. I wish I knew, you know, and that's so true. What I know now than when
right.
my kids. I mean, we all feel that way. But yeah, it's you know, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's a very big difference between, at least in my dreams and
Mm,
my experience, between like a visitation and just a dream,
mhm.
because my husband unfortunately passed away 4 years
Oh,
ago.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And we were married for decades, over 40.
Mhm.
So I wasn't able to dream of him like the first year, and it was very upsetting to me because I really take my dreams very seriously and they mean a lot to me. And I kept having all these dreams and him not in them. And then one night before I went to bed, I said, you know, Joe, his name was Joseph. I said, Joey, you know, I understand if you can't reach out to me and I respect that, but I would really love to hear from you in my dream tonight. So please try to be present. And I had an amazing visitation from him that
Mhm.
night. And I
Mhm.
call it a visitation. And it was very different than just a dream.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
So
So
you did such a wonderful thing. First, I'm so sorry for your loss.
oh,
But
thank
what
you.
you
Thank
did is a perfect way to get that kind of visitation if you desire it, is you invited him.
yeah.
You asked him. You were really clear and you were really specific, all of which are the hallmarks of a really good question. So sometimes our ancestors don't know if they if we want to visit or not. Sometimes they're busy over there doing whatever it is they're doing, and they're not travelers through worlds. Not all of our
Yeah.
ancestors want to or can, but many can, but they might be waiting for an invitation. So depending on
Yeah.
their sort of temperament, are they the kind of person who would show up unannounced, or would they wait for an invitation? And they might be waiting for an invitation from us in order to
Yeah. I
come.
love that. I love that. So Heidi said regarding her dream that she felt something special.
Mm.
She said, we made eye contact and that feels, or I guess felt so real. And as my grandparents on both sides didn't really communicate, I don't remember what happened after they sat down, but it felt serious, she said. So do you think that was a visitation based on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I would be curious if and I don't know how you do the show, but if we wanted to sort of go back and forth a little with Heidi. So it felt like it was in the present moment, it was happening. And the fact that they were behaving a little bit differently than they did in waking life is, if it were my dream, as we say in the dream world, because I can't tell you what your dream means, but I can
No.
associate to it.
Right.
So if it were my dream, I would think, oh, if I had grandparents who couldn't really communicate well while they were alive, and now here they are, we're sitting at the kitchen table, and I don't know if we're having tea together or if we're having cookies, but we're making eye contact, and
Mm,
it feels like it's something serious. And from
yeah.
over here where I sit, it feels like we're gonna have a conversation. And that already says to me, there's something they've come to talk with you about, to share with you, or to tell you in a way they just weren't able to, for whatever reason, while they were embodied. Because once we're free of our corporal bodies, our soul self has a lot more wisdom and potential and ability to connect than when it's stuck in a body that may have been um, gone through trauma or simply had a personality that was, an introvert or whatever it was where they weren't communicating. So I would encourage you, Heidi, to continue the dream, right? What I tell my dreamers and my clients is when you wake up, that's not necessarily where the dream ended. That's just where you woke up. So you can dream it forward in your waking state. So have a conversation, write down both sides,
Mm.
sit down at the table with your journal with your grandparents and write down, so nice to see you. What have you come to talk with me about? And then listen in for the answer and write all
Yeah.
the sides of the conversation until you find out.
Oh, I love that idea. Like, to continue the dream in your waking state.
That's right.
That's great.
Yeah.
What about astral projection? Have you ever experienced that, that you can remember or know of? Has that ever happened to you?
On occasion, yes, I know people that have it more often than I, but I do know that there is a sense of being in 2 places at once, that your
Mm.
body is sleeping in the bed, and this is why and then your soul self that's traveling or your spirit self is remaining connected to your physical body through what many traditions say is a thin silver thread that allows you to travel to other realms. This is where, the notion comes from, by the way, I learned why you're not supposed to wake up someone sleeping really suddenly, because you don't
Mhm.
wanna take a chance on breaking that thread before their
Oh,
soul self has come into the body. I learned
yeah.
that somewhere in the past. Um, but then when you are traveling to other places, you can visit other times, other dimensions, other
Mm.
worlds. You can go to the library of the universe and look up anything you want. I think I learned that idea from Robert Moss, who you may be familiar
Like
with.
the Akashic records?
Oh, well, he's not Akashic Records, but they do that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I have a
Yeah, I love
friend who I get an email from her once a month about the Akashic Records.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've been really trying to dig into that too myself recently. But Heidi said thank you so much, Linda, for that.
You're
That
very welcome.
she said it deeply resonated with her. So,
Great. Do
and
that
it's
dialogue with them and see what comes out.
yeah, I love that idea. I really do. I'm gonna try that myself.
Hmm.
You stated that we are the dreams of our ancestors in your
Yeah,
book. And I guess that became the foundation of your book as well, right? Could you elaborate on that?
right. So our ancestors, our parents, grandparents, great grandparents, as far back as we can go, all the way back to the beginning of time and space and humanity, right? Had a dream of what they hoped their children and grandchildren would have and be in their life. So we are the living embodiment of their hopes and dreams. So
Mm,
they knew somehow that we were coming, even though they didn't know who we were back then, but they had hopes for us and they had dreams for us.
mm,
So they want us to be healed if we aren't. They want us to feel blessed and fulfilled. And how do we then honor them by both living a good life ourselves and to appreciate, have gratitude for the things we have, as
mm.
well as passing on the healing messages from generation to generation.
Oh, wonderful. What about anxiety? So many of us suffer from anxiety, and lots of times we don't know where it comes from or came from.
Right.
So is that like our ancestral trauma rearing its head?
Well, it could be any number of different things. It could be your hardwiring. You have, hi, whoever that just, you said hello.
Very, very. I always like
um,
to say hello to her.
that's good.
She's very gifted as well. So
That's
hopefully
great.
she'll ask some good questions. Okay, what were you saying? I'm
Um,
sorry.
It's okay. Let me find my train of thought. Oh, we might just be wired where we have too much or too little of some neurochemical in our system. Not enough serotonin, not enough dopamine, too much cortisol, and just
Yeah.
sort of hardwired that way. So
Yeah.
that's one possible explanation. Two, we might be, there's a category that has been defined now of, I think it's called highly sensitive people, that
Yeah.
we're all just a little thin boundaried, right? There are people in the world who are thick boundaried and who are thin boundaried. And
Yeah.
we need both kinds of people in the world. We need
Yeah. Yeah.
thick
Mhm.
boundaried people who fix our cars and do our math and can unclog the toilet and do these sort of practical things without becoming anxious about them.
Yeah.
Um, and we need our seekers and our dreamers and our artists and our poets and our writers. And when we are tending to be more right brain like that rather than left, then we're just more sensitive to environment. So something that doesn't bother other people might bother us
Mm.
because partially, again, it goes a little bit back to wiring. So those are two things. And then there's two others to sort of off the top of my head. One is we might have had events in our life, in our childhood and our adolescence that were traumatizing, that were difficult. It doesn't have to be like big T trauma. It doesn't have to be something terrible. It can be. It
Yeah.
can be abuse of some sort,
Right.
growing up in a substance abusing family system, having complicated, difficult losses at an early age in life that we've just never really healed from. So then we develop what in the trauma field are called triggers. So we can get triggered by something that reminds us of the original wound or the original trauma, even though it's not happening anymore. So a war veteran, for example, who was
Yeah.
in a combat vet, he or she have been home now for a decade, but anytime they hear a car backfire, they still jump and crouch because has become instinct to them. So
Sure.
so and that's our life, right? That's not an inherited thing. That person, he or she was in war. They just haven't finished healing yet from the PTSD. And there's lots and lots of modalities available to do that deep integrated, embodied healing work with PTSD.
Yeah.
And then the last one is what you're wondering about is when we inherit this stuff from our parents or our grandparents or our ancestors who pass it down either through the methylization of genes, through the changes in the dreams, or the way they parent us. So if your parent, I'll give you an example from my life. So my mother never learned how to swim
Mhm.
because her parents, my grandparents, I don't know if they had trauma from water or not, but they were very, very anxious about her swimming. So she told me stories that when she was little and they would take her to the beach or to the pool, they would always say things like, "Watch out, be careful, don't go any deeper, don't drown."
Yeah.
And so she developed that anxiety because of their anxiety. And in some families, then that gets passed on to the next generation. And we tell our kids, "Oh, be careful, you'll drown." I give her so much credit that she made sure that I and my brothers had swimming lessons from a very
Yeah.
early age. So we would be protected from drowning by having been taught how to swim. We went to summer camps and during the year, and we all know how to swim. So that's an example of that transformation, right?
Yes, I
Of an
love
old
that.
message
I
rather
love
than
that.
passing on the
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah, and Carrie says, "Oh, we could talk about trauma." Linda's on point here. And a lot of people resonate with that because while we're in the midst of this spiritual awakening, which many of us are experiencing,
Yeah.
it comes with pain too. It's not only this wonderful epiphany of realization and waking up. It comes, when you grow spiritually, it does often come with pain in and of itself because you feel very separated from sometimes your friends, your family, because they can't relate to what you're going through, and
Mm,
sometimes you
mhm.
can't even express that to them.
Right.
So, yeah, it's not always an easy thing, and I love Alan Watts talks about that
Mm,
in depth, what a
yeah.
lonely place a spiritual growth, can take you to at times.
Mm,
So, if we're all feeling this trauma, And a lot of us are. I talk to many, many people
Sure.
that are feeling this pain, this trauma. How can we use our dreams to heal from that? Say someone doesn't want to go to therapy.
Sure.
So they buy your book and they follow, your step-by-step advice. Can someone literally use their dreams to heal from a lot of this trauma? Is that a feasible thing?
I'm gonna say yes with a qualification because yes, and it depends.
Okay.
Because one of the things that's so ingrained in us in Western society is that we have to buck up and do it by ourselves.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't ask for help, or we
Right.
shouldn't get other people involved. And that is part of the seeds of why so many people feel lonely. Because you talked
Mm,
about this, particularly since the COVID pandemic, but in Western society with all of our devices, people are in their phones instead of looking at each other. There's a pandemic of loneliness going on. So that accentuates anything else that we're dealing with. If we feel that nobody's got our back. Nobody's really listening. No one's paying attention. So to be able to engage with at least one other person, if not a group, is one of the best ways to create, we call it your posse of protection,
yeah.
right? Your cohort, your community, because we desperately need to be connected to each other in community. And I think as you were talking about, Caroline, many people are going through this sort of spiritual crisis, really. In this time in the world, there's so much pain and suffering all over the globe. It reminds me of two metaphors from nature. And a friend of mine last night, we were just celebrating her 70th birthday. And we were a bunch of women sitting around and we were talking about spirituality. And one person said that her daughter lost her boyfriend. The daughter lost her boyfriend at like 20 years old, and it was very, very painful. And she said
Mhm.
she went walking with her daughter last summer in a field, and there were all these butterflies. And one butterfly landed on her daughter and stayed there. And then they walked on and the butterfly flew away and then came back again and kept coming back. So we talked about, and she said her daughter just knew this was her departed boyfriend who had died. So we were
Mhm.
thinking about this metaphor of the butterfly as something that transcends um, worlds. So what
Yeah.
happens? How do we get butterflies in the first place? They start as a worm.
Yeah.
Right? They start as a caterpillar. Now the caterpillar then creates a cocoon, sort of like a shroud, and they have to bury themselves inside the cocoon, and they have to die to what they were
Yes.
before the cocoon opens, and they can emerge as the next being with wings, the butterfly with wings. So
Yeah,
I
that's so
think about that image of how we can, use our dream work
true.
to
Mm.
move in that direction. And then the same thing holds true if you're thinking about a plant, right? I don't know if you're a gardener or if any of the listeners are
Yeah, I love my
gardeners, but with perennials, you plant them in the fall, or you planted them 5 years ago, and at least up here in the Northeast, and you said you've got a snowstorm going on right now. Winters are cold, and we don't
yeah,
see much green, from I don't know, November until
yeah,
March or April.
yeah,
And then like magic, this is my favorite season, I call it green shoot season. Like magic, in March or April, the earth starts growing again and green
yeah,
shoots
it is
open up.
magic.
And they do it year after year after year. So I think, wow, if these little bulbs can be buried underground in the cold and the dark for many, many months and then reemerged in the spring, we can do
Yeah.
that too. We can do
Yeah,
that
that's
too.
so true. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for the magical things that we're capable of doing. We just don't. As a psychotherapist, you blended, traditional psychotherapy with spirituality.
Yeah.
How did your loved ones, friends, stuff like that take that when you decided to do that? I mean, I would be interested to hear.
Um, I guess they mostly take it fine and appreciate it, and I It was very funny, actually. I have this expression that I've used with my clients, and I've taught my daughter, who's now 28 years old. When there's somebody has bad behavior, and we're trying to unpack why they have bad behavior,
Yeah, yeah.
rather than just blame, blame, blame. And so I say,
Right,
"Oh, it might be because X or Y, Z happened to them."
right.
And then we say, "Explanation, not excuse."
Yes.
Right? So
That's so true.
yesterday, my very left brain sort of introverted husband who I love dearly, who is not, big in psychological talk or spiritual talk. We were watching a TV show together and one of the characters did something stupid and he said, "Oh, maybe because this happened to them. Explanation, not excuse."
Oh, that's funny.
So he took it in.
Yeah.
He's been living with me for I don't know how many years we've been married now, probably going on, I don't know, somewhere between 30 and 40. I'd have to go back and do the math. But I think also as I have grown into an embodied spiritual being, right? A spiritual being living in a body and had that be my primary self, that's who I hang out with. That's who my friends are. And I belong to many, many different communities. I belong to a dance community. I belong to a spiritual conversation community, a Torah group. I belong to the dream group, the International Dream Group. So these are all people who, we talk the same language.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I haven't had trouble with it, I guess.
Yeah, that's good, and it's so important to surround yourself with people like you said. I mean, that was one of the main reasons I loved becoming a part of United Public Radio because I was doing this on my own before they invited me, and now I've had the opportunity to meet so many wonderful people. It's been an absolute blessing because some of the people in my private life just don't click with that.
Right.
They just don't they just don't get it. So
Yeah,
I don't try to push it on people.
sure.
I
Yeah.
just let it go. I
Yeah,
just
I
let
have
it
2
go.
brothers, and one of them is, like, right on board, and we talk about mystical things all the time, and the other one, I love him dearly, he's great fun, and this is not part of our conversation because he's like, "Eh, whatever."
Yeah. 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 I've been an empath my whole life,
Mm,
and ever since far back as I can remember, even 4 and 5 years old, I was always told, "You're too sensitive. Stop being
right,
overly sensitive."
right.
All the way up into my, you know, like my sister tells me that all the time. "You're just too sensitive." I mean,
Mm.
she's stopped now, not as much because I think she knows, but, how do you heal from something like that where, there are many empaths even in the chat. We have a lot of people
Sure.
that are, the veil is thin for us,
Yeah.
so to speak. So how do you come to heal about that? Because that's something we don't wanna pass down unintentionally through generations.
So maybe what we wanna pass down is the ability to be empathic and connect, but we don't wanna pass being flooded and overwhelmed,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So this is where we wanna pay attention to our boundaries.
Mm.
And in the book, there's a whole very, very detailed protocol called a boundary balance that has a very detailed description, including some pictures, little drawings. And whether we're highly sensitive, whether we call ourselves empaths or not, we still have to be in balance. And in the mystical school of the Kabbalah, there are triads of emanations of the divine that very much correspond with the chakra system.
Right.
And the top triad says it's Chesed, Givura, and Tiferet. So on the right shoulder, we have our loving kindness and our giving and our saying yes and our reaching out and letting people reach in. That's one side. That's the Chesed. The other side, the Gevurah side, is strength, limit setting, boundaries, saying no, and
Mm.
we need both. If we have too much of one or too much of the other, we're out of balance. And when we're in balance, right over the heart chakra at that place called Tiferet, that means beauty and balance.
Mm.
So, those of us who tend to be, quote unquote, too sensitive particularly if you're suffering sometimes, or if you're feeling, oh yeah, I wish I didn't feel quite so much so deeply. We talk about, you got to get your Gavora on. You got to work on those boundaries and set the boundary balance. And there's a wonderful embodied somatic practice that's in the family of tapping. And I don't know if you can see me on the screen, but you tap on your
Yes.
sternum, right? It's called boundary balance tapping, and there's tapping and there's tapping and feathering. And with it, you say a statement of intending to have 100% healthy, strong boundaries at all levels of being, right? And all your levels of being include at the emotional level, at the
Yes.
physical level, at the spiritual level, at the cognitive level, at the energetic level, at the ancestral level. Those I learned from my teacher, Drew the Swag, with HBLU, but we added at the ancestral level and at the dreaming level if you're getting nightmares over and over again. And so
I
you
was going to
can
ask you about that, about nightmares, but go. We'll talk
no,
about that.
no, but so in the book, or you could look up, boundary balance practices, um, to protect yourself from feeling overwhelmed or having people say you're too sensitive all the time. To practice those boundaries so that you can pick and choose how open you want to be and when you don't want to be so open, and have,
Yeah.
again, the choice and not just get flooded.
Yeah, I think that's so important for folks to hear
Yeah.
that because with empaths and people that are
Mm.
sensitives, boundaries are a very difficult thing to put into play, especially when
Mhm.
it comes to our loved ones,
Mhm.
people that are very close to us.
Right.
And, we don't want to absorb any of that negative emotion either. So, boundaries, you're absolutely correct
Mhm.
about. What about nightmares? What you talk in your book, well, I wanted to ask you, I think it's pronounced the Gaia method. I don't know. It's
It's
G
actually
A
Gaia, just like the earth, Gaia.
Gaia. Okay. So talk to us about the Gaia method because you go into great detail about that.
Okay. So Gaia is an acronym that stands for Guided Active Imagination Approach. And it's a method I developed, a protocol for working with bad dreams and nightmares.
Hmm.
And it's based on two sort of legs, if you will. And one place it's based on is Jungian active imagination work, where
Hmm.
we can re enter a dream state and redream, if you will, and talk to the characters and talk to the landscape and sort of continue working with the dream from the inside. So we actively imagine going back inside the dream. So that's one of the pillars of the method.
Hmm.
The other pillar of the method that's really critical for working with nightmares is based on resource having strong resources development and protection. And that's based on my training in EMDR, in eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a embodied trauma treatment methodology that is really known now as one of the top methods for helping people with PTSD. So before we muck around, if you will, with something really scary and dark and nightmares, we want to make sure we have good enough boundaries so we don't get re traumatized or re triggered, and that we have enough protection to be able to go back to sort of the scene of the crime, if you will, without getting hurt or chased or drowned or whatever it is that's about to happen in the scary nightmare. So in the Gaia method, there's stage one, which is the resource development, where
Hmm.
I would work with someone. You can do this on your own, but if you're having scary nightmares, I really recommend you work with someone who's trained in doing nightmare work and trauma treatment.
Yeah.
Um, Build a posse of protection, invite in all the people, the animals, the angels, the landscapes, create that bubble of safety around you. Bring in healing light. I have a whole protocol in the book on the sapphire light of protection. So
Mm.
before you even go to work with the nightmare, get your posse of protection.
Yeah, that
And
makes
then you peek it, and then the bridge, right? There's stage 1, and then there's the bridge, and then stage 2. And in the bridge, you look then at the nightmare without going inside. You look from the outside. And with all this protective people and things, you say, oh, okay, is there anything I didn't see the first time, or anything I missed, or anything that I'm noticing now? And then once you feel safe and secure enough, then you go inside the dream. And then you can do the transformational work from a different place, because now you've got your bubble of light, you've got your sword of protection, you've got your body shield, you've got
Yeah.
your great grandma with you, you know.
Yeah.
One of my clients said, before I go back into my nightmare, she was like 23 years old. She said, I'm bringing my cell phone, because who knows if I'm going to need to call someone for safety. I want to have my phone with me, and I'm bringing a charger. And she said, and the good news is my cell phone has a really strong flashlight on it. So because, it was really dark in my nightmare, so I want to be able to turn my flashlight on in the dream as well.
That's
So that was
cute.
very creative.
Yeah, very creative, very creative. A lot of people, first I want to say hi, Benno. Always a pleasure to see you. A lot of people have this question. I don't know if you do a lot of dream interpretation work, but they say that if you die while having a dream, that you really could die, or that it's like some type of warning I've heard. Could you kind of help us sort that out?
Sure. I hear that frequently. It's a common,
Yeah.
it's an urban myth, right?
Yes.
Because if you died while you were having a dream, you wouldn't be here to talk about it,
Right. Exactly.
right? I mean, sort of just logically. So it could have many, many different meanings, including you're having a transformational experience in your dream, and that some part of you has to die in order for a healthier part to grow and emerge. So in dreams like that, we want to check, did they actually really die, or not? And if so, how did they know? And how do they explain waking up then afterwards the next day? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
But I
to,
like that. Benno said thank you to you. But I like that concept of having it be like almost a transformation, or maybe letting you know that you need to like have a death and wake up in a different spiritual sense, maybe something like that.
it reminds me, Carol Ann, of what you said before, that you do shadow work on your own. And to do shadow work, we're encountering the parts of ourself that live in the dark, that live underground, that may or may not have died, or may not need to be put to rest, depending
Yeah,
on who
that's
we're
so
working
true.
with. So to
That's
go into a dream like that with the idea that this is a symbol or a metaphor, how do I figure it out?
yeah,
Rather than,
yeah.
oh my God, I've died.
Yeah, it's funny when you were talking about the caterpillar just this morning, and to me, everything is synchronicity. So I heard this because it like the universe knew that we were going to talk about this topic. But I was watching this little video on eagles, and it real quick, it explained that eagles can live up to 70 or 80 years old.
Mm,
But what happens to them at the age of about 40 is their beak becomes dull, their talons become dull, they can't hunt as well, they can't
mm,
protect themselves as well. So they have to make a decision, and they can either choose to die, or they can go to a stone and knock off their beak. And then when their beak regrows, which it will,
right.
which is very painful for them. This is a very painful process.
I bet.
Then once their beak grows back, what do? They pull their talons out, and they let their talons grow back. And then they're able to live for the rest of their duration of their life, 70, 80 years. And to me, that's like very indicative of what we're talking about, because we have to do that too, lots of times, and maybe our dreams are letting us know that, hey, you need to have a rebirth,
Yeah.
pull out the talon, pull out the beak, let it regrow. It's painful, yes, but it's necessary, kind of thing, right?
Right. When a seed grows into a plant, it has to shatter its shell
Yes.
to be able to grow. And that's very profound, that example of the eagles, I
Yeah.
didn't know that about eagles.
I didn't either till this morning. See, that's what I'm
Really
saying. It's like the universe
fascinating.
knew.
Of
Yeah,
course it
yeah,
did. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, pain is growth is painful. And I love the fact that you can tap into your dreams for healing.
Mm,
And while not all of us take our dreams, like you said before, seriously, I think we should start to do that, don't
mhm.
you? Like, start to, if you don't remember your dreams, ask to remember them,
Yep.
document them. And if you need to go to someone who maybe is a dream interpreter or do some more digging, definitely read your book because
Thank you.
seriously, I'm not just saying that because it really is a nice platform to get like each chapter takes you through this journey and teaches you how to have these conversations, how to have the compassion and the creativity, how to
Mm,
deal with your nightmares, your trauma. So, I would say for somebody that doesn't really take their dreams too seriously, definitely check out Linda's book. And of course, we have her URLs running across the screen and for those listening, you want to tell us what they are, Linda, so folks can make sure they check them out because we have a lot of
oh, yeah,
listeners.
sure. So my home website is lindayaelschiller.com. That would be LINDAYAELSCHILLER, all one word, .com. So that takes you to my home website where you can learn about me and the various things I do and have done. And if you're specifically looking for the book on ancestral dreaming, the website for that one is ancestral-dreaming.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. I have to laugh because Benno says, I wanted to be an eagle and next now I'm reconsidering it. Yeah, it's so interesting. I think so many of us believe in reincarnation
Mhm.
too. How does reincarnation play into ancestral healing? Does it?
Sure. I mean, just the first line of the
Come
book,
on,
as
Kelly.
you quoted, it's like, "We are the dreams of our ancestors." Like, we are the embodied, living, breathing hopes and dreams that they wanted to pass on in the world in some way, shape, or form. And I dare say everyone who's got a computer and is watching us or listening to us is probably better off in the world than 95% of the people on this planet. Whatever your
That's
personal
true.
circumstances are, you're probably doing better than people all over the world. So we can first of all count our blessings and be grateful for that. Um, and then when we think about our tell me your question again, because I'm gonna go off on a tangent, so I want to make sure I answer your question.
Oh, no, no, that's fine. I wanted to know about reincarnation
That's right.
and yeah.
So this is my personal belief system. It may or may not resonate with other people. I do believe in reincarnation, and
Mhm.
what I believe is that our soul, and this is true in many, many mystical traditions, whether it's Kabbalah, whether it's Sufi, whether it's Gnosticism, whether it's in one of the Eastern philosophies, that we have many types of souls or layers of souls.
Right.
And the soul or spirit is what enlivens our physical body. When and there's an imprint of our personality on one of these layers of our soul or spirit.
Mm,
So when our physical body goes, our soul self goes to be with the one, with the all. And part of us becomes part of the universal soul and stays in that realm with the divine, however you understand what that is.
mhm.
But there's another part of our soul self that retains the imprint of who
Yeah.
we were when we lived in a body. And that soul self can choose or be chosen. I think mostly it says they can choose to come back again and do. And
Mm.
we've heard many, many stories. I'm sure many of your listeners have stories for you about either knowing for themselves or someone else who talked about. And there are, books written about this. And
Yeah.
um, there's a,
Do
there's
you
a
think
piece of us.
Yes, absolutely. Do you think that we can reincarnate And in other words, the people that are in our lives, our parents, our sisters, brothers, our lovers,
Mhm.
friends, you think we all just continually keep that reincarnation cycle up so that we stay connected, like spiritually, always through eternity?
Um, I certainly can't give you a definitive answer on that, but from over here, I would say sometimes and
Yeah.
sometimes not.
Right.
Um, we might have I was just here's a synchronicity, right? You were watching something on eagles. I just read a book about wolves. Actually, it was a
Mm,
sci fantasy book, and it had to do with werewolves and turning into from a human to a wolf, but it was very, very fun reading, but the whole idea of the pack of wolves, and the pack is paramount, and they come
yeah.
back over and over and over again through many, many lifetimes and stay together as a pack, to speak to your question.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's true for some of us, but I think a couple things. One is I think you might we might reach a point in time where our soul work is just done being in a
Yeah.
body, and we're not gonna come back anymore. And I don't know how that's decided, who decides that, but I don't know if we come back forever, and we might not come back in human form. We might come
Yeah.
back as the tree in your front yard or the pussycat who sleeps, curled up next to you at night.
Right.
Um, and it might not be a family member that you're reincarnated with. So, personal story, I mentioned earlier that, our daughter is born in China, and when we got the adoption referral, is we get this little tiny, tiny picture when it's overseas adoption of her as a baby, and then about 9 months later, I always joke it was like a double pregnancy with the process to about 18 months. I started sending her the red thread of connection before,
Mm,
we even met as soon as we got that little picture. And then we got there, and she was clearly our child. There's a whole dream story connected with that if we have time. But over the years, it's so amazing how much we have in common. And it's not only the epigenetic parenting part that she's parented by me and my husband. So
right.
there are things that we really can't explain and often say, I don't think this is our first time around together. I
Yeah.
think we've been around together
That's
before.
exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like you talk about bone knowing, I think.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by that? That you kind of know it to your core?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's right. There's
Yeah.
a knowing that's beyond words, right? It's that
Yeah.
bone knowing, that ineffable Eugene Gendlin, who wrote Focusing, calls it your felt sense, and
Yeah.
it goes through your whole system.
Yeah. Because I like the fact that you have these exercises in your book too. Maybe you could hold it up so folks could see the cover. Do you have it near you?
I have it right here.
Yeah, I have the PDF, so I can't hold it up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. I have to give a
Great.
shout out to Llewellyn. They do a great job with the covers.
Oh,
All my books have beautiful covers, so thank you to
they're
the
the best.
artist at Llewellyn.
Yes, Llewellyn's awesome. Awesome. They publish so many great authors
Yeah,
that I've met through them.
yeah.
They're just a blessing. So you have a list of exercises, as I was saying in your book, that I think are really beneficial.
Mm,
How do we help those on the other side, our ancestors, to heal from their trauma? Like, how do
mm,
we do that?
right. So if you're having either getting a dream or a visit where you're hearing or knowing, um
No, he said your book is calming, the color scheme.
oh, I know, isn't it? Oh, let me show
Yeah,
you, since we're doing show and
it's
tell,
very nice.
I'll show you the other ones.
Yes.
So this is modern dream work, and then this
Oh,
one is PTSDreams. So these were like the night vision, stars and
beautiful.
clouds, and I think because of the ancestral element, they wanted something in the fall, autumny
Yeah.
tones for
Yeah,
this
yeah,
next
yeah.
book.
No, they
So,
made a nice connection between them.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I had asked you about ancestor how do we help,
Right.
um, because I have some ancestors that needed some help, like,
Yeah.
how do we
So,
do that?
whether they've come through in a sleeping dream or in a visit, or in a waking synchronistic encounter where you're walking down the street and you're thinking of your grandmother whose name is Rose, I'm just making this up,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Mhm.
all of a sudden in December, where roses don't usually bloom anymore, you see a rose still blooming, and there's a
Mm.
synchronistic encounter with your grandma Rose, right? Or whether you're just thinking about her and getting the sense, and you know some of the history. So there's a couple ways you offer the healing. First is surround yourself with the light of healing and protection so you don't inadvertently take on her stuff because you don't want to take it out of her or heal it from her and then take it in for yourself. So you want to stay sort of clean, if you will, from
Yes.
carrying that which is not yours. And then once you've done that and you bring your posse of protection in to take care of yourself, then you start a dialogue with, I'm just going to say Grandma Rose because I happen to think of that. I don't
Yeah,
have a
that's
Grandma
perfect.
Rose myself, but you ask her if you don't know what happened to you, or what still hurts, or what are the wounds. And even if you do know, ask her if there's anything else that she wants to tell you that you don't
Mm.
know. Because lots of times in families, there are secrets and silences, and those can be deadly.
Oh,
That
good
which
lord,
is
yeah.
buried does not get healed, right? So you hear what it was that happened to her, and then you offer to her a variety of different options for bringing healing. The first thing you do is you remind her. I'm just using her at this moment because I'm talking about
Yeah,
Grandma
yeah,
Rose. You say, Grandma
absolutely.
Rose, you might not have noticed this, but you actually aren't alive in that lifetime anymore.
Mm.
So all those things that happened to you, I'm so sorry. And they were very real. And I'm really sorry you had to suffer. But they're not actually happening now. Because sometimes the departed don't really know. They haven't passed over all the way. They might be
Yeah,
stuck in the in between, right? In the bardo. Or part of
yeah,
them is passed and another part of them is their some part of their consciousness is still
yeah,
thinking they're reliving it. Just like with PTSD,
absolutely.
they're recycling the trauma. So first you help them recognize that they're in a different place. And then you can work with your ancestor as you would work with a dream and invite them to reimagine whatever the difficult thing is where they're stuck. Imagine it forward, dream it forward. This is active imagination
Mhm.
so that they end up in a safer place or that before they die, they've let go of the pain. It's going to be different for every person, right? Depending on
Absolutely, yeah.
who you are and what the ancestor was. But so the ability to kind of be creative and you're doing both sides of the dialogue. What works in your family situation to dream it forward? Maybe before they were running and they couldn't escape. This time they're running and they grow wings and they can escape and they fly away.
So you can kind of imagine the healing for them
Right.
through their a waking dream or an actual dream.
That's
You
right.
know, and I love that, Linda. And I wanna kinda touch upon this too. And hi, Lee. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, and this is what I was talking about before, Linda, about how the pain that we're feeling. And I can totally relate to this particular comment, and I'll read
Yeah.
it for those listening. Have no desire to reincarnate for more torture in this world. Now, I think Lee is a girl. Correct me if I'm incorrect, Lee. She put, I think it looks like laughing emojis, but that's just me. I've had enough of such a nasty place to try and live without being controlled like sheep. Now, I absolutely get that because part of our global awakening is, like I
Mm,
said, painful.
yeah.
And it's seeing through this veil of deception that we've all been witness to.
Right.
How can we start to heal from this trauma? And what can they do? Like I said, I think it's a woman.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's okay.
yeah.
So, it's
So
interesting
what?
because
Give us advice.
I saw the chat too. So the little emojis I saw, they were laughing faces, but they were also crying at the same
Here.
time. was really interesting choice of emojis. So I want to give you a shout out for creative emoji use that I think get kind of both sides of the dilemma here. And if you want to be done being incarnated, then you can work with your dreams and do what's called dream incubation, where you ask your dreams a question to help you solve a particular problem and then dream on the problem. And what
Oh,
you
I think
might
you
want to
froze up
think about
there.
doing. I'm sorry, what? Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
just
frozen. Oh, there, you just unfroze.
it buffers every now and then, but it's
Yeah,
all good.
okay. Is to ask your dream muse to give you advice on what do I need to do in this life before I pass, before I
Mm,
die, to finish my soul's purpose. I really want to finish my soul's purpose and complete it so that I don't return again. And if that's your goal and your desire, you need to find out what your soul's purpose is so that you can do your work to be kind to a stranger or volunteer at a food pantry or say a kind word to someone who you've had a fight with or whatever it is that's in your immediate life. Some of
yeah,
us might be on a global scale where we're going to, work for organizations that help world hunger.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
here, no, I'm reading your note. You're not supposed to pretend to be happy because that's not true. And you're not supposed to ignore it. But what you do need is to have sufficient, as I was talking with Carol Ann before, sufficient boundaries so that you're not being flooded and taken down by the suffering around you. And
mm,
then to think about what's the one small thing or the two small things, or as you go on, three, that I can do to make a difference. It could be something really simple, like you're in the coffee shop and you pay for the person behind you in line. You've made a contribution to healing in the world.
yeah.
Could
Pay it
be,
forward, paying it
yeah,
forward.
yeah. And you're not ignoring. And if you don't have financial ability to help people who are suffering or medical ability to help people who are suffering, can you volunteer at a food pantry once a week or once a month
Yeah,
and pack groceries? So it's different for every person, right?
yeah,
Or you'll write a poem, right? Or you'll write a book. Maybe you'll write a book about what you're struggling with and help other people by being vulnerable so that they can see your struggles and know that you're working on that.
yeah. I love all that, Linda, because like I mentioned before, we're in a painful place right now, but we can't let that pain stifle our love, our forgiveness, our spirituality. It's so important. And again, that's why I love having these conversations with
Mm.
someone intuitive and spiritual as you. I have a few more questions I love these comments. So folks, you guys are spot on today. Linda, if you don't mind, Benno has a question here. Dear Linda, I get so frustrated. I feel like I'm a tourist in this lifetime and I don't know what my purpose. That is such a great question.
Oh,
I mean, I know you can't tell him I think he's a him, Benno, right? Yeah. Um, Sometimes with these names, you never know, but I've spoken to him so many times, so I'm going to be rest assured and say, yes, it's a him. You can't give him a definitive answer, but what advice do you have again with this frustration we're all feeling?
yeah. Well, the fact that you and so many of us are feeling this frustration means that you have a heart of kindness and a heart of goodness. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't be feeling the frustration. You wouldn't be
Yeah.
seeing the suffering. You wouldn't be feeling like a tourist in this world. So, for starters, to take a nice deep breath and say, okay, I have a heart of kindness here. What can I do with this? I'm actually, as I'm talking now, I'm actually seeing that image of Jesus with the bleeding heart, not in a
Yes.
bad way, but just as an image or a metaphor just kind of jumped up into my mind. Um, so in order to engage is to find, and it's similar to what I said to the other person we were speaking to, You can do this in waking life, do automatic writing, do
Oh, I like that.
journaling, do dream incubation, and put out to the world, I'd like to know what's my soul purpose. I have a desire to know what is my soul purpose. And if it feels right to you, you can even make a promise to your dream muse or your divine source or your guardian angel or whoever it is you're speaking to, that once you know your soul purpose, your promise is going to be to act on it. And if
Mm.
you keep up with this practice, you will begin to get answers and it will become clearer and clearer to you. And just to throw a little neuroscience into the perspective, Rahab taught us the acronym that what fires together wires together. He's talking about the
Oh,
neuroanatomy of our brain. So what fires together wires together. So if you're putting attention on this dilemma, on this struggle that you're having, you're going to actually be rewiring your neural networks
oh,
to
yes.
finding out your soul purpose rather than wondering if you have one.
I love that. That is so true. And I was just going to add, Benno, don't do this just once. This needs to be like a daily ritual,
That's right.
and you will discover your purpose and meaning. I guarantee it. He also has another great question here. This is a big one for Indigenous
Mhm.
people. Can they
That's right.
move past intergenerational trauma? What do you think, Linda?
100% yes, and it's work. And it's happening. I'm reading so many stories now about second, third, fourth generations of Native Americans and Indigenous people, literally all over the world, who are now doing the work of healing themselves, reclaiming their language, reclaiming their ceremonies, reclaiming their sacred connection with the land that they live on. Because not only us human beings have been traumatized, but our land has been. And in
Yes.
shamanic work, there are four types of beings, right? There are human beings, animal beings, plant
Mhm.
beings, and
Yeah.
stone or earth beings.
Oh, yes,
So
very much.
we have to, if we extend our purpose. There's a wonderful word that I love in Hebrew. It's called kavanah, and kavanah means intentionality. And it's
Mm.
from the root of the word lekaven or kivun. And kivun means direction. So if you point yourself in the direction you want to go with intentionality, then you have a much, much higher chance of getting there. And
Oh,
that's what I'm seeing and hearing Native Americans. I'm going to New Zealand in March. Anyone want to come do dream work for a weekend? I'm going to be in New Zealand early March. So I've been reading up about the Maori and the Aboriginal groups in Australia and all over the world who are really reconnecting with and repairing what a lot of colonization has done and a lot of violence has been done to Native peoples purposefully and with a sole purpose to reconnect with their ancestors, do the ceremonies, do the healing work that they learned from their ancestors, and then pass it on to the next generations.
oh, that's so beautiful because they're so rich in that. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of the indigenous, they're just spiritual by nature, these folks. So that's such great advice. And a lot of people are feeling you, Linda. Carrie says, "Wow,
That's
Linda's
sweet.
as intuitive as I am. We would get along swimmingly." See, it comes right through the screen. It's great. It's
Oh,
great. It's
thank you.
great. Let me just see if I missed anybody else in here. Okay, so Lee also mentioned, and I think this is an important question to you. Lucifer's false light, when it passes over, it lies
Mhm,
to us and it lures us back in. How do you deal? It's all about yin and yang, darkness and light, the
mhm,
balancing of both.
mhm.
Acknowledging the darkness. You can't have the light without the dark or the dark without the light.
That's right.
How do you balance any of the negative forces that have come your way or protect yourself from them coming your way? Do you
Mhm.
do that for your dreams? Do you have rituals? Do you use the exercises in your own book? What's that like for you?
Yeah. D, all of the above.
Yeah.
So I can tell you, parenting, anybody out there who are parents, you love your kids madly, and they can make you crazy and make you wanna rip your hair out or their hair out
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah,
And so the boundary balance, I can't tell you how many times I've done that parenting my daughter once in
yeah.
a while still today, but not very often anymore because she's 28 now and, as
Sure.
she says, sometimes she says really wise things, and I'll say to her, "Oh, honey, that was really wise." And she says, "Well, I do have a therapist for mom." So it's very, very cute, but I've taught
That is
her,
cute.
how to do these things, and sometimes, if your kids are being annoying or your husband's being annoying or your wife or your family member, whoever, depending on what you're comfortable with, you can say, "Why don't you take this dilemma or this problem and go talk to your grandma about it?" Now, grandma who's departed.
Right, right.
Go talk to your grandma who died, who you used to be close with, and go see what she has to say. Now,
Yeah,
my daughter grew up with this. I say, "Go talk to Bubby and Zadie in your dreams." And she'd come back the next day, and I don't know if she really had dreams with them or not, but she'd come back and pretty much inevitably the advice she had gotten somehow that she channeled, I'm
yeah.
totally on board with. So you can deflect, for sort of negative influences, like go talk to someone on the other side who's like living in the
Right.
light. Um, and then there was a question in that where it seems like, and I don't remember who it was who wrote it, but someone who's really struggling with the dark, and I think he used the word Lucifer, and like feeling like
Yeah,
there are
that
like
was me, I
devil
think. Yeah.
forces at work. And I'd say really find the place of spiritual connection that works for you. It may be with a traditional religious group. It may be with an alternative spiritual or religious group. It may not have to do with spirituality at all, but find the place where you can connect with what feels light and peaceful, and a
Mm,
place where you can catch your breath and relax. And then remember that spot. And there's a wonderful exercise. I don't think it's actually in this book, but oh no, actually it is somewhere. It's called it's anchoring. It's from NLP, neuro linguistic programming, where you remember there's a place you used to go as a child that was in the forest down the street or in the little woods, and it was really peaceful. And you sat under the tree with your back against the trunk of the tree, and you're sitting on the ground and you're just feeling surrounded and loved by the tree spirits.
mm.
Touch your fingers together, any two fingers on your hand, and make an anchor. This is your anchor. And you do this a few times where you really bring yourself back to that forest spot and to the tree people and to the energy of peace there and to the positive light side of the divine, and make yourself an anchor. And then you do that a few times, you go back and forth, you unanchor, you do something else, you come back to your anchor. When you need it, all you'll have to do then is put your fingers together,
Oh, I love that.
and you'll be right back. I mean, this takes practice,
Yeah.
but then you can carry it around with you when you feel that the dark forces are overwhelming. That's
Oh,
one.
I
I
love that, Linda. So you're kinda using your brain to it's like to wire your brain to know that when you're tapping, it's like safe. You're in that safe space. That is so awesome. I love that. What did Miss she say here? If you touch your pointing finger and thumb, you breathe into your tummy. Oh, yeah, because I've seen a lot of that too, where people are using these types of neuro linguistic
right,
things,
right.
triggers, I guess you'd
That's
call
right.
them.
Well,
Yeah.
they're connection points. In yoga, right, they're
Yeah.
called mudras, right? There are mudras
Mudras.
where you're holding your
That's what they
fingers
are.
together,
Mudras.
and it doesn't have to be these 2 if they work for you. You could do this, 2 different hands, you could do this. It's whatever feels comfortable to you that takes you there, so that when you're breathing into your tummy and you relax your shoulders and you
Mm.
relax your jaw and you put your feet on the floor, we have no idea how much tension we walk around with until we tune
Oh,
in and
good.
notice it.
You better believe that. That it's funny because I like to use music to do that, to like
Nice.
wire myself down, different types of sound. It could be bells, it could be mute,
Mhm.
whatever. But it's all of these things work. What did Heidi say? I have what's a
I think
phone
it's supposed to be done.
motion?
I've done mudras before I knew what they were. Yeah, because your intuitive self brought you there. Good for you.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah, I'm just reading oh, he's being funny, Benno. He said, "Do I have to pull my finger out of my nose first?" Yeah, that would help. That would help.
Well, at
He's
least
just
if you're
being
in public, That might work privately, but maybe not in public, might not get you too
funny.
far.
It's good to laugh. Laughter is so, so, so important. I love that.
Laughter and creativity and
Yes.
movement and connection.
Yeah.
Find your posse in life too. Find a person, a group of people, a community, because we don't have to do this all alone.
No, we
And
don't. That's
keep
funny.
tuning in to Carol Ann's show because here's a community right here, right?
Exactly. And these people are gems. They really are. And everybody is searching for this healing and searching for their community because lots of times we don't have it in the real world,
Yeah.
sadly. And the internet has now become a real world for so many people. It's such a reflection of who we are and who we want to hang out with and, what we want to learn. We just have to learn to not let it overtake the real world too, because like you said, you need to go outside, walk barefoot in the grass, hug a tree. I mean, it's hard to do in a snowstorm, but like that's why I have so many plants
Yeah.
because when I'm feeling really stressed out, I go over and talk to them. And the funny thing is my dog gets very jealous when I talk to my plants,
I
which is
believe it. I
which is
totally
so
believe
funny.
it.
Yeah, he
See?
knows.
Yeah,
He
oh,
knows these
absolutely.
yeah.
Here, I'm gonna show you my kitty cat's been here. He knows too. Let me see if I can get
Oh,
him on the screen.
I love
There he is.
kitties.
Effie. Hey, sweetie. Hello.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's gorgeous. Is that a girl?
Actually, it's a boy. It's short for Ephraim. But I
Ah,
was
Ephraim.
thinking of her too because it sounds sort of like a female name, and he's white.
So he's keeping you company. My
Yeah, he's hanging
poodle is
out with
right
us
over
today.
here
Well, he
too.
likes the show apparently.
Yeah,
He's
that's
right over
good.
the heater
I love
in this
that. I
room,
love
so he
that.
likes the hot
Heidi
spot.
loves animals. She loves my dog Oliver. She's always commenting. Yeah, it's true, Heidi. She just told her daughter to go out and hug a tree. I hope the weather is good by you because by here it's we've got awful conditions right now. But you can bring that inside with plants and
That's
and
right.
use that to heal as well, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I love that. I
If it
love that.
feels healing to you and it's not hurting anybody else,
Yeah,
go for it.
exactly.
Be
Go
creative.
for it. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. So, I wanted to ask you this before and it kind of slipped my mind. You work with patients, right? You currently see people. Is that you're still doing treatments for folks? How's that working?
Okay, so well, the good news and the bad news is I actually closed my clinical practice,
Oh, you did.
because I've sort of my husband was very disappointed because I said I'm retiring from clinical practice. However, then I immediately started writing a third book that has taken up a lot of time, and I'm not
Oh,
really
yeah,
retired. I just sort of changed careers, but I still do
exactly.
consultation. So I'm not
Oh,
doing
nice.
long-term ongoing work anymore because I would see people for years and some people like for decades. Literally, it
Yeah.
sort of became their surrogate family. But I'm still doing short-term consultation with people on a
Oh, so
kind
you
of
do that via Zoom or something,
if
right?
they're not in the greater Boston area, then yeah, on Zoom.
Yeah, that's nice. And is that mostly on ancestral healing or is it just general trauma? Could be anything.
It could be anything but we have to be really clear because if we're doing a short-term piece of work, to do some dream work together, we can say, "All right, let's have 2 meetings and we're gonna work on your dream, and you'll bring 1 or maybe 2 dreams, and we'll really unpack and we'll get through the layers of the multiple layers of meaning of your dream." And that will then ripple, right, and resonate out to the rest of
Mhm.
your life. So,
Oh, I
we're not
love
gonna
that.
do long-term deep trauma treatment in 3 sessions, but we can create a platform and
Yeah.
connect you with how to do your dream work, and then invite you to find other people who are doing it long term.
I would think that a lot of people would wanna reach out to you to do like, they would wanna tell you, "Oh, I had this dream X, Y, and Z. What does it mean?" I bet you get a
Mhm.
lot of that, right?
It's like the minute that happens, if somebody finds out I do this, like, at a party or whatever, it's like, "Oh, I had this dream," you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, and
How do you
luckily, I
handle
love what
that?
I do, so I don't really mind.
Do you help folks interpret their dreams too, and then kinda weave that into ancestral healing?
Yeah.
Is that yeah, so yeah. I would think you would have to do that, in order like, you'd have to do some dream interpreting in order to know what the other side's trying to tell us, right? Because they speak in symbols, and
That's right.
sometimes we don't get that, right?
We
We
have
don't
to
understand.
translate the symbol and the metaphor of our dream world through the gift of association, and we look at all dreams, and we say dream work because interpreting means I'm, like, telling you what your dream means. So I'm not interpreting your dream, but I'm helping you to interpret your dream by
To
offering
interpret your
ideas
dream.
and thoughts and suggestions.
Yeah, I
And
love
the
that.
beauty of doing dream work with either one other person or even better in a group is that you get multiple associations and ideas from other people that you might not have thought of, and
Right.
everyone in the group gets the benefit of everyone else in the group's dream. So when we're sitting in the group, we all can get an aha or a felt sense of meaning or a learning, even if it's not our dream we're working on from somebody else's dream. So I
Yeah,
encourage
that's
people to create dream circles to do this dream work together.
dream circles. Now I love that idea. What exactly are they? How do you use them?
You get together with a small group of people, and the purpose of the meeting is you bring your dreams. And some dream groups are sort of like self-help groups. There's no leader, and some have a designated leader, and
Mhm.
some take turns. Each week someone else is the leader. But you work on dreams together, and there are a few sort of basic
Wow.
guidelines of sort of respecting. Each dream belongs to the dreamer, and confidentiality and safety, and there are a few other things. And not to get in over your head. If you're working with really, really scary nightmares, you may not want to go all the way in unless you're
Yeah.
feeling very, very secure and you know each other really well. Um,
Now, is that what you're doing in New Zealand? Are you doing this type of dream work?
well, I'm doing a whole weekend of sort of, they said, we want everything. It was very sweet. So I'm doing some general dream work in the beginning, and then I'm doing a day on working with ancestral dreaming, and then a day on doing work with nightmares, PTS dreams, dreams from trauma.
Oh, nice. So they're getting it all. They're getting it all. So Mish asked here because she popped in a little late. She said she heard recently we become more like the grandparent we think of and connect to. And we can change and think of the other grandparent and become like them. Apologies if you spoke about this earlier. Is that what would you say? So she's saying, what are you saying, Mish? That you could dream of them and become more like them and connect to them? I think that's what she was trying to say in that comment. You know what's interesting too, Linda? I think that we're a lot more like our ancestors than we want to believe we are.
Right. So what
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly the question, but maybe I'll loop back into answering it, and then I wanted to also check with you to see in terms of time, um, we can change ourselves. Yes, absolutely. So if you find oh, I'm more like my grandmother, but on my mom's side, but I really like some of the qualities of my grandmother on my dad's side too. Well, identify what those are. What are those qualities? How would you like to be more like that other person? And then, as someone just wrote, yeah, do it in your life. What would it look like if you were more extroverted? Or what would it look like if you were a better cook, right? Or what
Wow.
would it look
Yeah.
like if you like to, take long walks? I mean, it could be anything. What would it look like if you were more spiritual like that grandmother? What would it be like for you, right? So we always contextualize it in our own self, in our own
Mm,
life. our version of what we appreciate in someone else. How does that look when we do it in our life?
Oh, I love that. And I love looking at, and hearing stories of like our grandparents and kind of, asking in depth about their personalities and maybe wanting to be more like that. I love that concept. So in
And
closing, yeah, go ahead. Go
oh, I was
ahead.
just gonna say, and if you haven't done it already, I strongly encourage people, and this is, I think, either the first or second chapter, make a family tree. It's called a
Mm,
genogram in
oh, you
family
have that
therapy language.
diagram.
Make your family tree and ask anyone who's alive, the oldest people still alive, for all their stories and what they know about the ancestors, because once they're gone, you're not gonna get those stories anymore. So then
Yeah.
you'll have a pictorial representation of your family, and if you ask enough people enough questions, you'll get to fill in blanks that you didn't even know were blank.
Oh, and I love that. And you have a nice diagram in your book too, like how to approach it, how to
Yeah.
approach creating this family tree. So in closing, what words of wisdom do you have for us? Or tell us, and we know you're going to New Zealand. Also, are you working on another book? Do you have something in your brain that needs to
Oh.
come out? Tell us.
I'll tell you, a couple of short things. There is another maybe book cooking. I'm not writing it yet, but it's cooking back there, and it has to do with spirituality and dreams
Mhm.
and the mystic side of things. I'll just put that there. But
Yeah.
2 upcoming conferences that I'll be teaching at. IASD is the International Association for the Study of Dreams. If you go to www.asd.org, you get to their website. Our conference is here. It's all over the world. This year it's going to be in Ashland, Oregon. It is amazing. People come from
Oh, I'm
all
writing
over the
that down.
world to do dream work. It's become one of my primary communities. It really, it's
Oh,
so
I'm gonna go
supportive.
join that.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
the
I
other
love that.
thing is, a colleague and I, Kimberly Mascara, are teaching a class at Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. Oh, actually, you're in the Poconos, right? So not
Yeah,
far from you. So
right.
come in September. It's not listed yet, but, we're teaching a whole week on ancestral dream healing at
Oh.
Omega in the United States.
Yeah, that's good, and that's not that far from me. Do you have a newsletter on your websites we could sign up for so we could stay abridged on
That
what's
would be
going on?
great. I have a Substack, and you can sign up right from the website on my Substack, and if for any reason that doesn't work, let me know, and, my email is simply linda.y.schiller@gmail.com. I'm overdue to write a new, newsletter because I've been doing a
Yeah,
lot of podcasts and a lot of, events, lately, but,
sure.
I'm planning to get one more out in December, but if you're interested in coming to Ashland, Oregon in June or to Rhinebeck, New York, yeah, come to New Zealand. This has been my dream, right? I've always wanted to go to New Zealand, so it's like a dream come true. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Come.
gorgeous place for
Yeah,
sure.
I can give you the, connection to sign up. They made a beautiful flyer and there's,
Yeah, you
registration
could send
form.
it to me, and I'll put it in the, like, wherever this is on Facebook, it's on X, it's on everywhere, and I'll make sure I add that into the
Oh, that's
description.
great. And for people who can't get to New Zealand, the one at Omega is gonna be really, really lovely. It'll be a whole week, and my colleague and I, we're gonna do making altars, and we're gonna be using walking the land, and where it's gonna be very experiential.
Oh.
Um, so
Are you gonna record that too on video for folks, like, or no? Maybe?
I don't know what their policy is. Um, I don't think they have a policy of recording, particularly if it's a whole week. Maybe
Oh,
they would
yeah.
record if it was just a day and if it was
Or maybe
online.
snippets, like little snippets of things
I'll
so
see
people
if
can.
that's a possibility.
Yeah, that
But
would
I
be great.
have if people wanna see, I have lots of podcasts and I have little snippets of, on YouTube. I have some videos and, things like this, so, um, people could do
Yeah,
that,
we
but
have a lot of people from Australia. I mean, she's in the future, right? She's in the future.
across the
She's in
pond.
Australia.
Oh,
We were
fabulous. So I just spoke with Barry Eaton, something out there, his podcast he does, and then I spoke with Melissa Woodward, the Dream Hub. These spoke with both of them over the last few months to do talk about this. They're both Australia.
She's in South Australia.
Yeah, I don't know what
Wonderful.
part of Australia they're in.
Yeah.
Big country.
I'd love to go there. I'd love to go one day, hopefully. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful and a blessing.
Thank
I
you.
thank you so much. And I'd love to have you back maybe in the beginning of next year or mid next year, and we could talk about your conferences and everything you did and learned, and your other books. You have other books we could talk about as well.
I'd be delighted to come back sometime next year when our schedules mesh again.
Absolutely. I'll be in touch via email for sure.
Thank you so much for your lovely hosting of this show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Linda. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
God bless.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Well, thank you, everyone in the chat. You guys always rock. Your questions were absolutely stellar tonight. I love your participation, and I hope that Linda was able to bring you some healing and insight and wisdom. I know she absolutely did for me. So my dog here is getting ready. He knows, Oliver knows every time I'm ending a show, and he'd want me to take him for a little walk. I don't know. Good luck in the storm, Oliver. But anyway, God bless and thank each and every one of you. And of course, a big, huge thanks to the United Public Radio Network and everyone that is a part of it. I'm always so grateful to them. And of course, you've been listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. And we are broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. So blessings to everyone. Take care, everyone. And I will see you tomorrow. If I could tell you real quick, I have a fabulous show tomorrow coming up. I think everyone is going to be really stoked to be able to pop in. It's going to be live, of course. We're going to be talking to Julio Consiglio about heightening your vibrational alignment and unlocking your peak potential. And he has had so many experiences with ET and extraterrestrials. So that's going to be brilliant to be able to speak with him. And then, of course, on Friday at 3:00, we have our beloved Michelle DeRoche back. I absolutely love talking to her. And we're going to uncover the ancient lore and forgotten history of the dragon. So that's going to be an incredible show. So please be sure and join us tomorrow at 5 p.m. EST and then Friday at 3 p.m. EST. Thank you all so much. Love you all dearly in the chat. Stay well. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.